All right, thank you very much. So welcome to the Danvers, the Realtor Advisory Committee tonight. We're doing this, as you can tell, by Zoom. Georgia, who's often with us, will not be joining us tonight, and we have Aaron joining us tonight. Welcome, Aaron. And I now have the fun-filled job of reading the remote, where are we here? The remote participation script. And I'm going to try to do that at the same time I admit people coming into the meeting. So bear with me, folks, while I go through this, and then we will introduce people that are on the phone. So good evening. This open meeting of the Rail Trail Advisory Committee meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement for open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will include public comment, and I'll mention that, how we do that in a second. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured recaptured by the recording. Meeting materials. Supporting materials have been provided to the members of the body, primarily the agenda, which I will show in a second. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Business meeting ground rules. We are now turning to the first item of the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each item on the agenda, and we will go through them and will refer to the appropriate member to lead discussions. After they conclude the remarks, the chair, myself, will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your mic, your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items for public comment, we have established an email address for public comment, which is in the agenda, which you can find on the Town of Danvers website. And that email for public comment is publiccomments@danversrailtrail.org. You can send that meeting. You can use that email if you want to send questions to us during the meeting. Residents may email comments, and they will be provided or read out loud once they've been received. All emails must contain the date and the subject line. Please include your full name and address in the email. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. I believe that is the end of the public comments. Any comments on the public comments before we get started? What I'm going to do right now is I just want to open up the agenda, and we'll show the agenda, and we can get started. Okay. So, hello, Maureen.
Hi, sorry I'm late. For some reason, my Danvers housing is always at 5:30, so on the same day, so we jumped from one to another. Thank you. Sorry, I apologize for being late.
This is the agenda that we're going to cover tonight. I'll show this quickly. Comments from the public, which you'll do in a minute. Yoga on the trail idea from Terry Moody, who will not be able to join us tonight, so we'll skip that. Chocolate walk. Current business, we're going to get an update on Northwest Extension Project tonight, led by Aaron. We're going to do an update on the funding plans for the surface improvements. Larry will provide us any update on the finances. We'll approve the minutes from the last month's meeting, and we'll set the meeting date for our next meeting. Any questions on the agenda? It's the same thing I circulated a little while ago, early in the week. It's up on the town website as well. Okay. So I believe we're supposed to start by introducing ourselves. Actually, I think I'm supposed to start by reading off names, so I'm just going to go around the horn here. I think it's easy to do it that way. We have Joe Anthony joining from the Rail Trail Committee, Paul and Nancy McNulty. We have Charlie Lincomb dialing in from the warm South, Mark Jones, Larry Perot, Scott Bornstein, Matt Duggan, and Tom Powers, I believe, is still on the phone, and Scott Bornstein, and Sarah Bornstein will be taking minutes for us tonight. And we have Maureen Bernard, our select board representative, and Margaret Bailey, one of our enthusiasts, joining us tonight. I think I've got everybody on the list. No, I hit Aaron. Well, anyways, I'll hit him again. He's worth it. Aaron and Henry, we'll mention it again. We can see his smiling face there. And so we're going to get started. I actually want to start with just one quick thing, which is I just want to thank the Baileys for a recent generous donation. Thank you, Margaret, for your donation. And I know you've been a big advocate of working with us and to supporting new donors. And so we had a pretty good group of new donors last year. So thank you, Margaret, for making that donation. It's very much appreciated. So we're going to start with public comments.
Paul, I have one.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I just was wondering if we could take a few seconds as a moment of silence for Danvers Police Chief Pat Ambrose, who passed away on January 16th. Pat was 35 years, serving the town, last 4 years as the police chief. He retired on Friday, January 8th, and had a heart attack on the 16th and passed away. He was a fellow classmate of mine, Danvers High School, 1981, and one of the good guys. So I thought maybe we could take a few seconds if we could.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Let's all take a few seconds and think of the chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. It was a nice thought. So other comments from the public? Okay. The next item that we had on the agenda was the yoga on the trail idea. I'm very interested to hear what this idea is. But Terry, who has been a supporter of the trail, is not on the call tonight. So she will be with us, joining us next month to give us her thoughts on this idea of yoga on the trail. I suppose I should actually take a minute. While Tom, you're there, but you're only there by voice. I want to welcome Tom as our newly appointed, most recently appointed member of the committee. So thank you, Tom, for all the work you've given us in the past. I don't know if you want to chime in from the phone or wait until you're here online.
Well, I just want to say I'm really happy to join. I enjoyed my first year as a volunteer very much, work with the team, and looking forward to a good 2021.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Thanks. So the next item that we have on the agenda is the chocolate walk, which we generally do around the middle of February. And I just want to see what the group thinks about, do we want to host a chocolate walk this year? So I will open it up for comments and just let you kind of get started. If you have comments, chime in. No one's...
Well, I'd like to say that I'm hesitant to have the chocolate walk because it's a gathering of people, and it's hard to do a gathering on a linear park. Although we usually have stations where we give chocolates or hot chocolate or something, but I'm a little anxious about doing that.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts?
I would love to do it, but I agree with Nancy. I think, it's just, we got hopefully a few more months to go, maybe 6 more months, and maybe we can do something in the fall, something different. I don't know. I'd love to do it, but I agree with Nancy, I think, on this one.
I did get one comment from one of our rail trail enthusiasts, which was Bill Graham, who would like to do it. And he just think that his hope was that we could just ask everyone to wear masks and keep their distance. My only concern is I'm a little bit hesitant because I don't quite know how we would police that and who would want to police that. But Bill would like the idea of doing it and would like to see if we can do it. Other comments?
I would agree with Nancy and Mark. It's probably not appropriate at this time with the state of the virus the way it is right now. And this is our most populous walk of the year. So, yeah, I think we kind of would hold off.
Yeah,
I
we've
think we
had
should.
yeah.
I think we should, do something, later on in the spring where things may be, more suitable for an event on the trail.
Okay. So I'm taking from the comments that basically there's no one who's really keen on doing it, and that I'm going to give one more chance. So what I'm going to propose is that I will do an update like I did last time. Mark and I will put an update on the website, just letting people know that, like the first walk, we won't be doing this year.
I agree. I think it's too risky.
Yeah.
With it's just. I don't think people would like that we were doing it either. So I think it could be a negative feedback for the trail as well.
That's not
That's true. Yeah, lots of people use the trail now as an opportunity to get out and be safe, and yeah.
good point. Okay, that's thank you for that. We will. I'm going to just not jot this down so I can remember to do this. Okay. The next topic that we have is an update on the Northwest Extension, which is, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron.
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Yep.
Nice to
Hello.
see you all. Sorry you didn't get Georgia tonight. She had the audacity to try to use some of her accrued vacation time.
Well deserved.
Oh, yeah, that's what she said. But no, so thank you for having me. And I thought I wish I was a bit more prepared. I just ran back from the COVID testing site. My feet are frozen, so I apologize. I'm having my hot cup of tea trying to warm back up. But I did want to provide you guys with a bit of an update on the extension and some of the meetings that we have coming up related to that. So let me just start with the high level stuff. We are having an information session February 10th with the abutters to the rail trail expansion project between Hobart Street and Maple Street, as that section is hopefully going to be under construction in the next couple of months. And so we wanted a chance to meet with those folks to ideally allay any concerns that they may have about what it's like to live along the trail. I know when we did the first trail, people are concerned about potential crime, potential loss of privacy, any number of issues that kind of come when all of a sudden you have a park running through your backyard that didn't used to be there. Again, I don't anticipate major issues with that. In 2018, during the summer of 2018, we did do an abutter notification to that same crew when we were applying for, I don't know if it was the Mass Trails grant that we thought that we had applied for, or if it was we received $100,000 from the state for some planning work, and so it was either one of those. And of the 50 plus homeowners that we solicited, I think we only had 2 phone calls come back to us. And they were not over the top concerns, so that was a good thing. And it was mostly just concerns with loss of privacy. It wasn't the crime thing, it wasn't that. So I assume we'll get more of that. It may be a little bit, now that this is getting real, maybe it brings out a few more folks. So we're doing that on the 10th. We've been talking to Paul as we're hoping the Rail Trail Advisory Committee, at least some attend. And we want to feature kind of the Rail Trail Committee as stewards of the trail. And hopefully that helps allay some concerns that folks might have. And if they can see fellow residents that are out there, taking care of this. We hope that that will go a long way. Otherwise, we're going to kind of talk at them a little bit to share the detailed plans of what's coming next, which I'll dive into in a moment. And then primarily, get their feedback and give them that chance to kind of, try to ask their hard questions, and we want to get back to them. From there, the project will go to Concom. We're working right now with VHB and on finalizing that submission to go before the Conservation Commission. And then ideally, we would be soliciting bids and selecting a contractor with an eye towards being in the dirt in June of 2021. So it's an aggressive timeline, but we're off to a good start. To go back a little bit, just as a recap. So town meeting, over the course of 2 town meetings, allocated $160,000 for rail trail planning and design purposes. About a year later, we were able to secure $100,000 in the economic development bond bill that the state legislature passed through Rep. Spiliotis and Senator Lovely's offices. They were able to help us out there. So we received an additional $100,000 to continue that work. And then this past year, in part due to COVID, the plans that we had for the hay barn at Endicott Park, we had received I think in fiscal year 2017, a $1 million grant from the state to design and reconstruct or rehabilitate the hay barn at Endicott Park. As it turns out, as we got to the conclusion of that process, it was determined that that was not going to be a viable project for us. The renovation amounts associated with the barn were just too big to overcome. And so we engaged the state in a process to amend that project and switch it over to this expansion program. And there was a lot of back and forth, but we were able to secure that. And I think that was final at the end of November when we had all the paperwork signed. And so we've got some resources to move ahead with the Northwest expansion. With the state's $100,000, we contracted VHB, a large civil engineering firm, to do a conceptual plan from tip to tail. And the town had broken that into 3 chunks. Phase 1 is Hobart to Nichols. Phase 2 is Nichols to the Leahy Clinic. And then phase 3 is Leahy to the Middleton town line. So VHB worked with us, basically auditing and documenting conditions from start to finish. And then right about the time that they were wrapping that work up is when we got the $100,000 from the state. And so we kind of switched the internal budgeting over to that money so that we preserve as much of the town funding as possible. And then we did a contract ad with VHB to specifically attack the Beaverbrook Bridge section. And so that's what the MassWorks program is targeted at specifically, is the section between Hobart and Maple. The largest chunk there is building a bridge, and it appears that we can afford it with the balance remaining, which I think was $888,000. And that'll get us up to, if everything goes smoothly and that contract goes through its completion, we will end the MassWorks program with everything to rough grade between Hobart and Maple, and the bridge installed with its final top coat of stone dust. So the town will have to do a little bit on either end, the final stone dust. We will have gravel burrow there in that entire phase, but we won't do top coat with the MassWorks grant. Obviously, I just detailed we have other monies at our disposal, but we just wanted to make sure we get through the bridge and that piece. And then we'll turn to getting the rest of that piece done. And like I said, we're hoping to be in the ground by June. I want to say we're at 75% completion by December, working on a punch list in the spring. And, you know, ideally this time a year from now, that segment of the new trail will be open and being used. I just threw a lot at you, so happy to take any questions.
Questions from folks? Just so you need to unmute yourself, Joe.
I have a question. Can you tell us anything about what's happening, Aaron? It's Joe Anthony, at the Route 62 at Maple Street.
You had asked prior about if we were able to go under. We did look at that option. We cannot go under there. There's a large sewer main there. There's a culvert for Beaver Brook, and that was determined to be infeasible. So the plan is, at the moment, we actually have to build up the earthen ramp on, I guess I will say, the south side of 62. We have to get that to an ADA compliant grade. So we're going to need to extend that ramp out a little bit longer. It's not at a compliant grade. So that'll be a fill situation there. The other side is the real design crunch and how to navigate basically a 20-foot grade change in about 20 feet of horizontal distance. We don't have, we are not at the moment, we have no contract for the design of what that will look like. And again, we're kind of batting around internally whether it's wiser to kind of match the earthen ramp we would have on the other side, or if it's more efficient to build some sort of a structure, a switchback structure.
Right. But at least that gets us up to 62 with the ramp.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we don't know.
Right. And we're hoping, and we'll touch on this in a little bit on the next agenda item as well, is I'm advocating internally that I think we should get that design work. Once we feel confident that we have the design for the bridge complete and we're through permitting with the Conservation Commission, which should be by the end of February, that what engineering design money remains at that time should be thrown into looking at that and getting down to that. The complicating factor on the other side, beside the grade, is compensatory storage for Beaver Brook. And so anything we put down on the ground on that side, we'll have to make up somewhere else. And so the engineers are all for some sort of a structure because the structure can have footings and displace a lot less than earth.
Right.
But our concern is long-term maintenance of something that's steel, wood, stone, something that's going to, come with a price tag. So that's something we have to look into. And I'm hoping, in about 4 to 6 weeks to be able to start dedicating resources to diving into that problem in more depth.
Yeah. So that neighborhood meeting that you mentioned right at the outset of your update is February 10th?
Yeah, that'll be virtual.
Oh, it's virtual. Oh, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, again, this is not the ideal setting for an abutter meeting. We'd like to be able to host them and, try to give them the full Monty, but I think under the situations, it's going to have to be virtual.
So we'll get a little information how to tie into that, I guess.
Yep.
Great.
So Aaron had asked, and Georgia had asked if we could do a little presentation. So I was going to put together just 4 slides. They had asked for something that was just an overview of what we currently have, who we are, who does the work, a little bit of community involvement to try to explain generally what we already have. I'll do that in the next, 4 or 5 days. and I'll send it out to the committee to take a look at. And then Aaron, from there, it's basically going to be an Aaron and George's show, right? From the standpoint of managing the outreach, setting up the Zoom calls, or whatever needs to be done. And then we'll attend. Charlie, it's so funny looking. And then we'll attend as you best see fit, right? Does that make sense?
Paul, was that a question for me? Or?
So I'm just saying. So basically, I'll put together this presentation we were talking about. I'll circulate it to the committee, but then from the standpoint of the logistics, like sending out the letters to the abutters, the getting set up on the Zoom, all that stuff, you and George will be taking care of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And again, the nitty gritty part of that presentation, we're basically setting the table for them, and then VHB will kind of get into it. Although again, I think most of the questions will be less about where the bridge abutment is and more about how is this going to affect me and my property but nonetheless, we want to share with them exactly what's happening at this stage. And I saw, I apologize, I think Mark had his hand up. Or he's giving me a high five. Which...
I just wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do that. No, living on Nichols Street, obviously, I'm really excited about that stretch between Maple and Nichols. Did you say that was going to be a stone dust packed surface when it's done, or are we going to have to do that?
So the contract with VHB, they bring, so the bridge and its approach, I'll say that's a couple 100 feet on either side of the bridge. That'll be done. Stone dust, everything.
Mm-hmm.
The part from Hobart to that point, and from Hobart to, I believe it's Maple Street, will be the gravel base. And I don't know how many of you remember when our rail trail had that gravel base, I think maybe for a season or so before we got it top dressed. Yeah. So that's kind of the condition that this contract will get it to. We should, I anticipate, again, I'm not going to say this definitively, but I believe we have the resources in all of these funding pots that we have at our disposal. I think we have the funding to finish the stone dust outside of the VHB contract. So they're giving us basically the base, and then we'll come through and top dress the front end and the back end.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Sounds awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Can we do it tomorrow?
I know. Well, and like you, Mark, my favorite segment is the next segment. So
yeah,
I'm eager to figure out how we get that going.
Right.
I have a question. Might the funds that Leahy contributed to us for the extension, would that be an appropriate use for that money if we need to dip into that?
I believe it, they gave it to us for the rail trail expansion. I don't think that'd be an inappropriate use. Now is that in the 501c3 though?
That's, yeah. We have a separate bank account for that money.
I think the only question, and this is really more for you guys, because the donation was given to the 501c3 and not the town, is do we want to discuss, where are we with phase 2 and phase 3, and do we want their money to go to something closer to home? I don't think they gave it to us with that stipulation, but I mean, if that's something that the group would want to consider, but I think it's reasonable for us to use it for anything on the expansion.
Yeah, and I think, Larry, what we would do is, as we learn more, I mean, I think Aaron is still, they've made a lot of progress, but in some ways it's still kind of early phase before they really, scoping out what needs to be done. We can look to that, those funds. We may look to see if we need to do more fundraising specifically.
Yeah.
But I think Aaron's point is the right one, which is that money was donated for an extension in that direction. And I think, this type of work, it certainly would be appropriate to spend it there. Exactly how we do it, though, we need to learn more about what's going to happen.
Well, exactly. No, I just wanted to at least, get clarification on that. And maybe, like you said, it may be better to do it closer to Leahy. And maybe at that point, they might be willing to, provide more money for something else that would complement the Leahy area even more. You never know.
Part of the reason I raised that only was that segment, Leahy to the Middleton town line, it didn't have zero obstacles out there, but the obstacles that are out there are minimal compared to some of the other engineering obstacles we face. And so in my opinion, the 20,000 will go farther out there than it, it'll buy, 5 feet of path at 62, but it might buy 300 feet of path down the line. So I just want to be savvy about where we use it and how we can leverage those funds. But ultimately it's the 501c3's call. But I think as we go through this process, there should be a constant feedback loop between the town, the Rail Trail Committee, and the 501c3 as to what's happening next. And that's part of the reason I think you're all scratching at it, which is why if we have design money left in the MassWorks account after we get through Concom and the plans are done, I'd like to start throwing that at the Maple Street one, because that to me is the next big expense. Doing some small culvert work or some small drainage work elsewhere on those segments isn't, that's not the scary part to me.
Okay. Are there any other comments on this before you wrap it up on this topic?
Yeah, this is Margaret. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay.
Live.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Aaron, you're right. There are different pots of money and people have given for different reasons. I guess from a process standpoint, there's this whole idea of when do you want to create momentum and enthusiasm. And I'm assuming obviously that there's a time for that. And, I mean, I don't think the average Danvers resident understands that this extension is in progress, and maybe there's a reason for that. And so I'm just wondering, what can you advise the Friends group and the committee about when we want to think about raising excitement about this? Because the love of the rail trail is never going to be higher than it is right now. And obviously the Friends group has to decide if they want to raise money to take care of what we've got versus extend what we're getting. And so what can you tell us about, you gave us some timing, but there's obviously some times when you don't want us to talk, the Friends group to talk about things, and there may be times when we should be talking about things. So what can you tell us in that regard?
Great question. I would just like to get through the February 10th meeting with the abutters. I mean, and obviously if that went totally sideways, we may not want to push to the entire community that we're going to do it, that we're, that again, I don't anticipate a red flag being raised that evening beyond what I think you guys have all, come to experience, that, the occasional angry abutter. I don't think it'll be overwhelming, and I don't think it'll be insurmountable. Assuming we go through that process and everyone's more or less accepted the plans, then I think we go full bore on it. The one trick, and I don't want to overly complicate it, but the biggest obstacle I think ultimately is going to be the state right-of-way in between. We have had preliminary conversations with Mass Highway, including their I don't know what they call their unit, but the bike ped unit, in addition to District 4, which is like the group of engineers that oversees any of these things. And that went very, very well, but dealing with state right-of-way is going to be a process. And that's probably going to take the better part of a decade, in my opinion, to get through. So again, when we're building momentum, my hope is that I would guess that we'll get a lot of momentum this spring. We're going to have to leverage that. And it may be that we build phase 1 and then go to phase 3, because phase 2 will be simultaneous, but it's just going to be on its own timeline. That segment, phase 2, will be paved. The Mass Highway, we will not be able to get around that. The way we have to go through the funding for that, the way that has to go through the Transportation Improvement Program process, that'll end up being a paved segment. That said, they're very supportive, and they gave us examples of exactly how they want to see us do it. So I'm not pessimistic. I just think that's going to take time, and it's going to take more time than most of us would care to see it take. So anyway, I think we should hit guns blazing shortly after the February 10th butter meeting.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Other things before we move on? All right, so I'll get something out to the group as far as some suggestions on a presentation, and then Aaron will and Georgia will keep us in the loop as far as planning for the meeting on the 10th. All right, great. The next topic. So this is about, I noted here, is update on funding plans. So Joe, as we've covered in the last couple last meetings, Joe Anthony had done quite a bit of work with a few contractors analyzing the various spots along the trail that we have erosion issues and we need some improvements. He's outlined it's a pretty nice spreadsheet with all the cost information, and that if you could remember from the previous meetings we looked at it, that added up to, I think it's about $86,000 for all that work. The most difficult work being the flooding out at the area just north of Wenham Street. But there's another series of places where we have flooding, we have erosion issues, et cetera. You're probably all familiar with them. There's about 24, maybe about 18 of these spots as you go along the trail. So Joe has outlined all that. We reviewed these at previous meetings. The goal of that work was to give something to Aaron and Georgia so that they could begin to use this information to include the I'm going to call it $85,000 for the moment, $85,000 in the town's 2022 fiscal year budget. And I'm thrilled to see Aaron shaking his head because that work is underway. And I believe in fact, the proposal, you are working to include that funding request that goes into the budget work for the town. So, okay, so you want, if you have anything to address there, then I want to jump to the Mass Trails grant, but could you have anything on the update on that?
Yes, mostly good news, but there is a twist that you could say, well, that's worth the paper it's written on. And I'd say you're correct. But I don't know that we're going to be successful getting an article, but I am very confident that we're going to get a fair amount of the money through other ways. As I just detailed, and I don't have it in front of me, but we've done a detailed accounting as part of the rail trail process for the bridge work. And so Georgia and I had a meeting with the finance director and the town manager sometime in January out on the steps. It was very cold out. We had the detailed, thank you, Mr. Anthony. That was really good and very, very helpful. I'll be candid with you. We brought it to them and said, here's the request, and we're trying to figure out how to meet this request. And we gave them 5 different scenarios. We said, we think going to you and asking for $90,000 might not happen. That was scenario 1. And we kind of came up with a couple of different ways to get there over the course of 2 or 3 years. And
2 or 3 years
after we walked away with that, from that meeting, basically we've sharpened our pencils, went through the existing warrant articles that we already have available to us. And it appears to me like we are going to be able to infuse the existing rail trail with a fair amount of cash, maybe not the full $80,000, but we're angling to get as much of that to you as possible. So the good news is once we sort that out, that cash is available immediately because it's all appropriated monies that we're talking about. As I said, it's worth the paper it's written on, however, because until I get that approval from the finance director, we've got $0 in our pocket. And I can only intimate to you all that I made it quite clear to the finance director and the town manager that the $8,000 a year that we've been contributing to the rail trail is woefully short. It is helpful, but woefully short. We have a major facility here that with ongoing O&M and asking this group to take on the magnitude of projects that we are now facing is not going to be possible. And furthermore, some of the things, some of the more mundane things on that list, the washouts, those have been repaired now at least once. I mean, I've seen most of them get repaired at least once. And our goal is to solve this problem and not have to come back to it every 5 years. So all signs were good. But again, it's until I get all of that signed off on, it's $0 at the moment. But that said, I feel very confident. I wouldn't tell you this unless I felt that we were going to get some money. But that's all, again, a backdrop to, I don't know that we'll get anything in the budget beyond the $8,000 that we normally get.
So perfect segue, Aaron, because you don't know, what Georgia and I and Joe have worked on, which is the specific things I want to hear, is an alternative funding approach, which is a mass trails grant. And so we have all the information that Joe's already developed as far as what we would do. And so myself and Joe, with feedback and review by Georgia, have written up a mass trails grant application. So we're basically ready to go to that. I'm happy to share it with you, but it's exactly the same information that we reviewed at this group before, as far as these 18 different sites and the same $85,000 that we would need to fund, with all kinds of wonderful words about the work that we do as a committee and town support and that type of thing, and community support. However, for us to go ahead and do this, we need to be prepared for a match from the Friends of the Danvers Rail Trail. And I just want to make sure that we're comfortable with this, and I'm going to ask for a vote on. That's why I circulated this note before. So essentially, the proposal is, and I had in this email I sent around, is that the $86,000 that Joe outlined of estimated costs for all the repairs, plus we're allowed to count our volunteer match time at rates that's defined by the state. And if we put in a reasonable amount of volunteer time, that will probably bring in about $8,000 of volunteer time. So then needing to hit a 20% match minimum, that would say that we need to be prepared to fund approximately $13,000 in cash and be ready to fund about 200 hours of volunteer time. So so first of all, I just ran through that. I've circulated this to the folks in the meeting, but again, it's all the same cost information that Joe prepared and we reviewed at previous meetings. $86,000 plus $8,000 of volunteer time gets us to $94,000 total cost, of which we need to fund about 20%. I actually have a math of 22%. Questions about that? Because I'm going to ask the group, are you comfortable approving the spending of $13,000 in cash if the grant is approved? And that we won't know until July.
Paul, just so do I understand? So it's 94,000, right?
Yes.
And they're looking for 20% match?
Yes.
Isn't that 18,000-ish? 19?
Well, I mean, it's a minimum. Well, so it's a little more. So the match is a combination of cash match and volunteer time.
Okay, so the cash is.
The volunteer time I estimated at $7,936.
Okay, I see.
And then you add on to that the $13,000 in cash, that gets us up to 22%.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly, I vote, I think it's money well spent if we can get this grant approved. I really do.
Yeah. Other questions on what's being requested?
So Paul, I mean, our gift was purposely meant to be flexible. And we talked about that as it was given. Obviously, I don't think in our wildest imagination we ever envisioned the significant town commitment to the extension, and nor was our gift meant to have anything related to that amount. And I think if you look at our giving gift, we're very comfortable with at least half of our gift going to that purpose. if that would help. Obviously there's the fund is significant. It's not critical, but I mean, from a giving perspective, we're definitely okay with that being a portion of the match. And I think that really aligns with the intent, which was leveraging the match for a greater amount of resources. So if however that helps in the thought process, I think that, you know, if that's 5K, then that's something I think we feel very strongly would be a reasonable way, because keeping care of what we've got, I think, is critical.
Thank you, Margaret. That's great. Appreciate that. Other comments?
When does the money have to be in place, ready to go? As you say, March?
No, well, we won't know if we're going to be approved until July.
July.
All right, and then that money would be spent over the following fiscal year. So it would be that 13,000 would be sent, you know, from July 1st of 2021 to June 30th of 2022.
And
Start. Yeah.
Paul, I just want to make sure.
I have to submit it. I have to submit it next week. But well, that's just the way it works. The submission date is February 1st. So I have to submit this next, whatever that day is, next week from now, 2 weeks, week and a half from now. I have to submit it by the 1st. We don't hear back from the state until, they say the earliest is July 1st, which is a little odd because that's the beginning of the next fiscal year, but that would be the date they gave us.
But
Well, they don't want to tell you got it in this fiscal year so that you don't incur.
I know.
I figured that one out last time. I'm like, I know why they do that.
But I think what Nancy's asking is,
they need to know that we can match it.
yeah, when I send in this
When you apply.
application, there will be a commitment that if we are approved, we will spend the $13,000. So that's basically what I want to make sure this group is comfortable with. If our grant application is approved, we will be on the hook to spend $13,000, which to my mind, if we spend $13,000 to get $85,000 worth of repair work on the trail, it's a pretty reasonable deal. Other questions? Matt?
Again, oh, sorry.
I would say I wanted to make sure Matt often has comments. I want to make sure he has an opportunity to speak up. I see his name.
Come on, Matt. We know you're there.
Probably at another meeting, multitasking. Well, he's being given this opportunity. Aaron, you had a comment?
I think, and again, I understand the situation that the committee finds itself in. So, you know, again, for what it's worth, at the staff level, we hope that the town will be able to help contribute to this and take some, you know, we have to do some work there too. So hopefully this is truly kind of a backup plan or a nice, you know, kind of cherry on top when we get to July. But hopefully, and again, we've talked to the town manager about a letter of support for the rail trails application, which will be forthcoming. We have no problems with that, but we just want to make sure that with this, again, I think we share some of the concern is, you know, does this grant take pressure off of the town needing to do what it should be doing? And at least at our level, the answer is no. We're continuing to focus on this is our facility, and if this works out, that's great. But we need to continue to invest and own this thing, and so that's the direction we're trying to go in.
Good. I'm going to then make a motion. I'm going to ask the group if the group is comfortable approving $13,000 of cash spending during the fiscal year 2022 towards the work that's outlined in the grant, which is the same work that we had outlined before, contingent upon us being approved by Mass Trails.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
So I'm going to go around the horn and I have to do this by voice vote. So I'm going to ask people for their vote. So I'm just going to go around. Joe Anthony?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Paul's yes. Charlie?
All in.
Larry?
Yes.
Scott Bornstein?
Yes.
Thomas Powers?
Yes.
Mark Jones?
Yes.
All our committee members. Oh, Matt Duggan.
Yes, we otherwise occupied.
Okay, so we have there's one abstain, but we certainly have a majority.
One
Did you
unknown.
get Tom Powers?
Yes,
Okay,
his
Tom.
first vote.
Yep, his first vote, that's right.
All right.
Lucky day. All right, so we'll consider that motion approved. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to all that. Larry, you want to give us any update just on?
One
Oh,
moment.
yes, sir.
Thank you for all your work writing up this grant. I know it took a lot of hours. I saw you here doing all the numbers and everything, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
wow.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
If it gets approved.
But the work had to be done, so.
Thank you. And Joe Anthony as well. And Georgia also has been great because she actually has been kind of guiding us as far as Conservation Commission stuff too. So this is good.
All right.
What a nice wife. She's got your back.
I know, I'm so lucky. All right. Next topic, I mean, Larry, I don't know if you have any updates on the finances, any new income.
Well, yeah, I mean, donations have been coming in from the emails that we sent out. And as Margaret, with Margaret here, again, thank you for completing the pledge. Just got that check the other day, and that's in the bank account now too. So we're up, around 35 in the general spending account, not including the Leahy funds. And so we're in good shape. We should be able to, we're starting off the year strong, and we've still got more mile markers to renew. We'll take a fresh look at who's renewed and who hasn't, and figure out how to reach out to them. But other than that, we're in solid shape.
Thank you, Larry. I just want to also add to this as a reminder that we do already have liabilities that we need to remember. We've made a commitment to purchase the shed, so we have a $65,000 liability, and we've made a commitment to put in 2 benches, which, by the way, George has checked with Danvers Electric. They're fine installing those benches up at the area around the high school, and that's about $800 to $1,000. So those are commitments that we've made that we need to follow through on. So,
right.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay.
Questions for Larry? All right. 2 more items here. So approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Oh, sorry, Joe, did you have a question? You're going to unmute.
I wanted to ask, there was, did we approve some money to repair the tractor?
Yes, we did that last, yeah, yes,
Oh, okay.
that's all done.
And the tractor is all repaired, ready to go. She said a tune-up, oil change, and still in my cellar.
Good job.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, and then,
Thank you.
so the minutes, everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting. Any comments? Otherwise, we'll have a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th, 2020.
Okay, second. Thank you, thank you, Charlie. All in favor? I'm going to go around the horn here. Joe, how do you vote?
Yes, approved.
Nancy?
Yes.
Paul, yes. Charlie?
Yes.
Who's next? Larry?
Aye.
Scott?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Tom's second vote. Mark?
Yes.
Matt? Okay. We'll take that as, we'll just take it as Matt.
I think the Danvers Airport, the Beverly Airport's got a meeting tonight.
Oh.
What was that?
Beverly Airport has.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of the last, I guess the last thing is the next meeting date we have down is February 18th. Does that work for folks? It's this traditional Thursday, the 3rd Thursday of the month.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. So listen, hopefully we'll see some or hear you on the 10th. However, Aaron and Georgia set that meeting up for the public meeting, the public forum. And
Hopefully it goes well.
Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully get good feedback.
It's going to go great. It's going to go great.
All right. Good confidence.
Anything else? Perfect. It's 5 minutes before 7, too, no less. Well, listen, thank you, everybody. Enjoy. Have a
Be
great
well.
night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.